Hello and welcome back to Linuxjobber.com. My name is Sean Joseph. The site we prepare you for getting Linux jobs and we also assist you in keeping the job. So this is all about Linux. As some of you may already know, my name is Sean Joseph and my email is showpopulous@gmail.com. So if you have any questions concerning Linux, please feel free to send me an email and I will respond as soon as I get a chance. So this video is a Linux basic video. It's intermediate level and it will be talking about commands that will be needed on Linux interviews. Most of the commands that we will talk about are those commands that interviewers will ask you. Reason is that you will probably use these commands on daily basis. These are commands that you will need. So they expect you to know these commands walking in through the door. So let's get started talking about the commands. If you already know so much about commands, you can move into other videos. This site has plenty of videos, and the best thing with this site is it does provide you practice machines where you can practice all these commands and a lot of other things before you go in for the interview. So you can take the practice and you can also take the test and prepare yourself for the next interview jobs. So let's start talking about the commands now. Let's start out with this command called who. 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 What does who do? Who is a command that shows you who is logged on to your system. So let's try it out. Here we go. Who. As you can see, this user Showpopulous is logged on to this system, and this is the time the user logged on. And then when you look at the next command, W, you would think because it has lesser amounts of letters, it will do less work. No, W actually does more for you. So if we take a look at this, let's put it on and see what we get. Look at that. You have the user. You even get the IP where they logged in from. You get other information, and the best part of it, you get to see what the user is doing at this time. So that could be very, very useful for you, knowing who is doing what on your system. So the next command we will be looking at is called yum. Some of you already know what yum does. Let's take a look at it. It's simply spelled Y-U-M, yum. And this will help you with a lot of things in terms of installing packages, finding which packages you have on your system, and going out to download packages from the internet and the rest of the information. So here's how you use it. I'm not going to use it right now, and the reason is that I don't want to install any packages at this time. We will be doing that later on. So here's how you use it. You put yum install and you put the package name and it will install it, or you could do yum upgrade. If you put yum upgrade, it will upgrade all of the packages on your machine. That's how you use yum. The next command we will be looking at are the if ups and if downs. So what does it do? It brings up interfaces. So let's say your computer has just one network interface. You will have that network interface. It will probably be if 0. So what does this network interface do? It is that Cat5 cable that you put at the back of your computer, the network cable, and that's all it does. That's an interface. Where it goes into is an interface, and that interface can be shut down and you can bring it up. So all you just have to do is type in if up and then if 0. When you put 0, it will go and shut down that interface. That interface will start working. And if you do if up, it will come up. If you do if down, if 0, it will go and shut it down. And then if you do if up, it will bring it back up. In other videos, we'll show you why you should be doing this. Sometimes why you need to turn it off, and sometimes why you need to bring it back up. And later on in this video, we'll be showing you how to determine what interfaces you have and the names of the interfaces. We'll do that later on. For now, let's go and take a look at the next command. The next command that they'll probably ask you, this is almost definitely going to come up on every Linux administration interview. It's called kill. So the reason why this is important is that when you have a process that is running on your system and the process continues to bog down your system, meaning it's either consuming a lot of memory or using a lot of processing power, and it's just sitting there, or it's even hung up, and that process needs to be stopped so that your server can continue working, you will need to use the kill command. And the way that you use the kill command is this: you type in the kill and you put in the process name here, and it will stop that command. It will stop it. Later on in this video, we will show you how to find the process names that you will put in there, and you can put all of these things together. Now let's look at the next command for now, and then we'll come back to the kill command. The next command that we'll be looking at is the top command, top. This top is important because it's one of those commands that are used in connection with the kill command. It shows you the process IDs, the same ones you need to use for the kill command and kill a process. In addition to showing you the process ID, it will list the process in the order of CPU use and memory use. So let's try it. When you type in top, let's see what comes up. Look at that. It shows you the process. Look at this process. Look how much it's using. Look how much CPU it is using. Look how much memory it is using. And the top command is showing you all of these processes and how much it is using. And what's beneficial about the top command is that it lists the process that's using the largest amount of resource first. That way you know which one of these processes is consuming all of your resources. And if you have to kill it, all you just have to do is take a look at this 23862, and then when you get out of here, you can go there and say kill 23862. Look at how easy that is, and it will stop that process for you. This process right now has been stopped already because I already stopped the top command, and I'm now at the prompt. So this process has already been killed. But if there was another process that's running that you need to kill, that is exactly how to kill it. Now the next command we will look at is the vmstat. If your environment where you're going to work, where you're interviewing for, if they have a lot of virtual machines, they will definitely be asking you about the vmstat command because it gives them the status of the virtual machine's memory. So let's look at vmstat, what it does. See, it does give you the free memory. This is what you have left. It gives you the swap, and it gives you information about the CPU. And that's what you need to know for vmstat. Now, if also they have a lot of machines, they may need to know the uptime for the machines. How long has the machine been running? Why is it running slow? Or when last was it reboot? When did something stop working? So while troubleshooting, you will need the uptime command. Here is uptime. You look at this, it gives you how long this machine has been up for, the time, how many users are on there, the load average. So it gives you lots of information about this machine. And if this machine is having a problem, mostly hardware problems, let's say like the hard disk is going bad, this is one of the places to find out. Now let's look at the next command. This is a very important command also. You are definitely going to get asked about this if you're interviewing for a Linux or Unix position. This is ps. This is what you have. When you just type in ps, this is what you have. So what you want to do is type in ps-e, which lists lots and lots and lots of processes that's running. Now, what does this do? It reports a snapshot of the current processes. So if you want to see all of your processes that's running on your machine, here's what you do. You type in AUX as the switch, and then it gives you all of the processes and lots of information on those processes. Look at this. So it does give you the user that's running the process ID, useful for the queue, and if a user is consuming all of your resource, if their application is consuming all of your resource, here's you will find out where the username is. You get the username from here. Now, here's the memory that each process is using on your system. So you get lots of information. This was when the process started. This is the time and the command that brought it alive. So it gives you lots and lots of information. And then one of the switches that you also need to know with this is if it's the U dash big U. And then you can put the username in here. That way, if you want to know everything that this user is doing, how many processes is this user running? Why is this user such a heavy resource consumer? These are the processes being run by that one user. If you really need to know. So it's a troubleshooting command, and it's very, very useful. So the next one is also very useful, and you will probably be asked this one here. Maybe not, but it's good to know it. So it's the free command. It just tells you how much memory you have on your system and how much you have left. Look at all this. The unfortunate thing here is that it's not human readable. It's just a bunch of numbers. But when you put megabytes in there, say give me something that I can easily understand. So it gives you this in a way, in a format that you can understand. So let's take a look at this. As you can see, it tells you in megabytes how much total. We have almost 1 gig of memory. We have used about 800 of it, and we only have about 78 megs of memory left, which means that if we put many more applications on this system, it will start running really, really slow. It will be helped out by the swap, but still it will run slow because we don't have much memory to work with anymore. So it's a very useful command. When you're out of memory, this is where you find out. The next command is the IOStat. It's for input and output. It reports the CPU statistics and IO statistics for devices, for partitions, and for network. But one thing that I wanted to show you here that I think is very important is how to use the yum command. So now let's see how all of this ties together. You put in the IOStat command. It tells you command not found. Then you sit there and you wonder, why is the command not found? Because the package that contains this command is not on this machine yet. I purposely did not put it because I wanted it to show up in this tutorial. So what do you do? Then you use the yum to install the command, the package that contains this command. So let's take a look at that. So you use yum install sysstat. That's the package that contains that command. Now you can put the -y in here so it doesn't ask you questions about whether I should install it or not. The y means yes, or you can put it in, you can let it ask you the question and you will answer it later. So look what it does. It says you need to be root to perform this command. I'm doing all of this to show you exactly what you need to do. In a lot of cases, you will have to do sudo to root. And if you do just the sudo, it will also go to root. But in this case, I'm not going to do sudo. I'm going to su dash to root. And when I use the dash, that means that it will give me the root's shell. The dash is very important. so that I'm in the shell of the root and I don't have to look for my commands. So in this case, I will do this. Now I am root. So now I do it again. Yum install dash y sysstat. Look what it's doing. It's going out there into the real world, looking for that package wherever it'll find it. Look, it found it, and it's now going to start trying to install it. It's not asking me questions because I already told it, yes, go ahead and install it. So now it's all done. It's all done. So now we go back and say iostat. See? Now it has information for us. What information does it have for us? Look at all these devices that we have on this machine. These are the devices that I have on my machine, the SDA, and these are its partitions, and this also. And it's telling us the amount of reads from this device. And if the device is going bad, this is where you start to see it, because the reads will start to become very poor. The writes, look at the writes. So with all of this information, you can easily find out the health of your disks. So now the average CPU, this is where you find all of the information that you need about this system. So now we go on to the next one, which is the SAR. The SAR, because we just installed the application, the SAR uses file system, so the SAR may not be useful right now. It may need to wait a day or two to collect information, but I'll put it in there just for you to see. So it says no such directory. This is the 23rd of the month, and it's looking for a file that was created on the 23rd of the month right here, and it doesn't find it. So it might need to wait a day or two to collect information about this system, and then when you will come back tomorrow and we search for it, we will find information in there. So for now, let's go and try npstat. This is another one, another command that uses information from the sysstat package. If the sysstat package is not installed, you will not see this command come alive. So what do we see here? The CPU, it gives you some information about the processor. All of these are related more to the processor. Remember, the first one, which is the iostat, is more about input output from devices and partitions and the network file system also. But this one here is talking about processes, is npstat. It's talking about the processes, the processors, I mean to say processors. So now let's look at pmap. I don't know how useful this one would be, but just in case you get asked, I'm just going to bring it on for you. So process, let's look for a process. Let's do ps-e and we'll pick a process. So let's say we pick 25123. So we do pmap 25123, and it just gives us information about the process. I don't know how useful it will be for interviewers and whether or not they'll be asking it, but it's just good to know what it is and what does it do. And what does it do? It reports the memory map of a process. This is the memory map of that process that we just looked for. So now we go to the netstat. This is absolutely the most important command you have to know as a system administrator. It will give you lots and lots of information. So we start with just netstat, and you see what it has. It gives you lots of information, loads of information. You're thinking, what do I do with all of this, and what are all this information? Look at all of this. So you don't need all of this information right now. You just need what's important. And what's important to you, let's start with the routing table. So you do netstat -r, it shows you the routing table. Look at my routing table. I'm not going to look through it anymore. I'm not going to look through it anymore. So that's the routing table. We can go into the details. If you have questions, send me the question, I'll answer it. But just know that the routing table is something that exists on every machine that determines where the packet you're sending out of that machine should go to. So let's say you have 3 machines. One of them is your desktop, the other one acts as the gateway, and the other one acts as the company gateway. So when you type in yahoo.com, it goes from your machine to the gateway. That packet, when it gets to the gateway is going to say, what do I do with this packet? Oh, the next thing to do is to send it to the company gateway. Then that packet goes to the company gateway. At all those points, there's a routing table, and the routing table determines where that packet is going next. That's all it does, and you need to know that one there. Now, remember when we started this video, I talked about network interfaces. That plug at the back of your machine where your Cat5 cable goes into. This is how to find it on your system. You type that netstat again, and you put -i for interface. And as you can see, it tells you this, you have only this interface. But then you say to me, but there are 2 of them. There's one here and there's one here. This one is a loop back. If you look at this L0, it's a loop back, which means it's just something inside your computer. So we're not going to look at that. Let's just look at the one that's going outside of your computer, which is the ETH0. And if you do have many more Ethernet cards on your machine, you will have many more than just ETH0. You'll probably have ETH1, ETH2, and so on. So now let's look at the next usefulness of netstat. If you do -s, which is a summary, it gives you a summary of what's going on on your computer. Look at all of this information that you have from the server. A lot of information. Packets received, packets forwarded, the ICMP, which is the ping, who's trying to access your machine, is your machine responding, all of these TCP connections, your HTTP, who get in, who didn't get out. All of this information is available. It doesn't tell you who, I'm sorry to say, it just gives you the counts. So that way you know when there's a increasing load somewhere, you can see it here. It's very important to know these things. Now, if you want to know process IDs for it, you put in -p, and it gives you the process IDs of the processes that are running. I don't know how important that will be, since people are not necessarily looking at sockets. Let's look at the -l, which is probably the most important one. This just shows you listening sockets. Listening sockets. So what does that mean? If you take a look at this, if you take a look at it, now we know which applications are listening. If you have a web server running on your system, this is where you will see port 80. This is the port here. This is the machine name here. This one is on the local host. This is just inside the machine. Now the MySQL is running. All of this, the FTP, the HTTP, this is the web server. This is the file server. This is your MySQL, the database server. All of this is the network file system server. All of this is running. This is the backup, Bacula. All of these are listening. They are running on your system. So it shows you whether or not they are listening. So if you're trying to troubleshoot whether or not a service has been started, maybe users can't access HTTP. They try to access a website and it's not running. You can come in here and try to see is this even up and running? If it is up and running, is it listening? If it's listening, then you know that okay, this is not where the problem is. Go check your firewall. So it's very important. And if you really want to see the inside of the names, you want to see the ports where all of these processes are running, where it's listening on, you push the -n option. Look at it. I put in N. So you put the -n option, and here's what you get. Look at this. All those same service names have been changed to port numbers, and you can see on what port is this service listening. Do you need to open this port? Do you need to shut off this port? So this is what you really need. This is where the service is trying to do something. So those are the things that you need to do with netstat, and it's very, very important. Another very important one that's not used often is the TCP dump. The TCP dump is a very, very important one, but it doesn't get used very often. So let's look at TCP dump. TCP dump. Look at all of this. I'm going to stop it, and then we're going to take a look at it. I put in the switches I put in is just give me the -I, this interface is 0. So when you look at interface is 0, it's telling me who is hitting this machine right now. It's giving me lots of information about the traffic that's passing through my internet, my Ethernet cable, my Ethernet port. Look at all of this traffic that's passing through. And we've been looking at that, and we'll continue to look at that. The SSH, if you look at it, SSH is going to it, where it's coming from. So that way you can see who's sneaking in, who's peeping into your machine. You can easily see. But that's if it's happening at this moment. It's used mostly for troubleshooting, and if you're trying to access, let's just say for instance, your web server, and you can't get to your web server, you want to find out when somebody types in your URL to their web browser, is the server is even seeing the request, in which case you will put in the port 80 or whatever port you set your web server to run at, and then it starts to listen on port 80. If a request comes in, maybe I should bring in a request very quickly on here. If a request comes in, you will see how it will automatically so now I'm going to try to access that server on port 80, and you will see how it's listening. It's just sitting there. I'm going to bring in a request. See, once I hit enter, it starts to tell me all of the requests that's coming on port 80, who's trying to hit port 80, and how the server is responding back very, very quickly. So you know that okay, the URL that's been typed into your user's web browser is even getting to your machine. Now the question is the web browser responding? And those are other tests you need to do. But that's just a function of TCP dump. You can listen on any port on your machine or any kind of traffic that you would like to listen to. It's very important. It's very good. You should learn it. That's very important. So now we'll look at ipconfig for viewing and configuring the network interface. If you just type in ifconfig, in Windows it's ipconfig, but in Linux is ifconfig. If you just type in ifconfig, it tells you the network interfaces. Like I said before, this is just another way of knowing how many interfaces your machine has. If you have many more interfaces, it will show up in here. This is the loop back. As you can see it here, it says loop back. This is the loop back. Don't worry about the LO. Worry about the other ones. Like this ETH-O, this means I have only one Ethernet card, and this is where it is listening on. And this is all the information that I need to know about it. So this is very important. You can also use this for configuration, but that's beyond the scope of this. If you need to go into the details of it, you can go into the details of it and use this to configure this interface. But in another video, we'll talk about how to use that. Then the last command we'll be looking at for interview is the nmap. It's probably not going to come up, but it's good to know it just in case it does. And it's just used for scanning. It's used for scanning the network. So it's an exploration tool. It scans the network and it scans the ports also. So if you do nmap -sl and you do all of my network .0.1/24, which is the entire, so scan everything on this network. So what you get will be a list. So if you take a look at it, it's doing its work, and it's looking at all of this, and wherever it does find a port, it will do this. But what I just wanted you to see is the fact that it scanned all of the ports, all of the IP addresses on this network. And if you don't want to scan the IP address, you just want to display the ones that are up, and you do this. Let's wait a little bit. As you can see, it's coming back up, and it just gives you the MAC addresses and the IP addresses, and just tells you what's up and what's not up. Very interesting. So this will bring us to the end of this video, and if you have any other question, please feel free to send me an email at showpopulous@gmail.com. These are just interview tips. We can go into the details of all of those commands, but that will be in a separate video. Don't forget, again, I will be expecting your questions, and I will gladly answer your questions. And if you need more videos on getting a Linux job, please visit us at linuxjobber.com. And also, the best thing that we will be providing for you, will give you machines where you can practice your Linux commands and skills. Make sure you're up to date before you go for that interview, so you have the best shot at doing well on that interview. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Joseph. Show on me.